What's up, guys? Welcome back to BlockHash, Exploring the Blockchain, episode 291. Happy Thursday, guys. Getting towards the end of the week, getting towards the weekend, getting excited. And happy November. We just passed Halloween, so time to get serious, guys, before the holidays. Today, I have the CEO of Toposware, Theo, on the show today to talk about what they're building in the space, what they're building in terms of an ecosystem of blockchains and some of the interesting use cases that they have and what they have rolling out going into 2023. Theo, here to talk a bit more about it. How you doing, man? Welcome onto the show.
Yeah, hi, Brendan. Nice to meet you, and thanks for having me. Super excited about this opportunity.
Likewise, super happy to have you on the show and have an opportunity to chat with you about Toposware and what you guys are doing. Before we do, tell the audience and all of us a bit more about yourself and your background. I'm sure people are curious to, what you've done in the past prior leading up to Toposware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, I have a background in mathematics and computer science, and I was involved, or I joined the blockchain space in something like 2016, 2017. And I spent a couple of years doing research in a lab on researching solutions to the blockchain scaling problems. And somehow it led me to do interoperability, because in the end, interoperability research is scalability research. And I focused, I specialized in trying to solve these problems by relying on or leveraging distributed systems and cryptographic primitives. And basically, this research is what led to Toposware and Topos, the protocol.
Awesome. What is Toposware? What are you guys trying to build more specifically? Because I know you guys are doing a lot of different things right now.
Yeah. So basically, Toposware, we believe in three key hypotheses. The first one being that the future is multi-chain and not cross-chain, and that a multi-chain ecosystem should be able to thrive even in the presence of malicious blockchains. So, for example, in your ecosystem, if you have a failure of a blockchain or a blockchain that becomes malicious, it should not have contagion. This failure should not be contagious to the rest of the ecosystem. And the last piece is that zero-knowledge proofs are an endgame technology for interoperability, scalability, and privacy. So basically, with those three hypotheses, we've built a paradigm shift protocol, which kind of redefines trust models with interoperability. So, yeah.
Interesting. No, I like that. The three hypotheses you kind of have for Toposware. What in terms of a contagion, like you mentioned that for like a blockchain, and how that could potentially affect like an ecosystem of blockchains. Can you give us an example of what that could look like and how you guys go about sort of preventing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, when we think about this, we need to kind of dissociate multi-chain and cross-chain. And it might not be super obvious sometimes to know the difference. So, for example, I'll briefly explain. So, cross-chain is basically when you have two blockchains that want to interoperate. So, what you do is that you will use bridges. And regardless of whether you are using trusted or trustless bridges, bridges are basically secure as long as the connected blockchains are secure. So, if you have an attack on one chain, or a successful attack on one chain, well, then this will create systemic contagion that will be like threatening the integrity and the economy of that whole ecosystem. That's not to say that bridges are bad or anything like this by any means, but it's just that they have inherent problems due to their trust models. Now, on the other hand, you have multi-chain ecosystems, which are built from the ground up for interoperability. So ensure that the vulnerabilities of cross-chain are mitigated. So you don't have the same vulnerabilities than with bridges. And so, for example, we have Polkadot. That is a very great example of such multi-chain ecosystems. But it still doesn't mean that there are no problems with multi-chains. Because, for example, in the case of Polkadot and other ecosystems, they are currently aiming to enable generalized communication by relying on trust in validators, which we see as unsustainable for global adoption of Web3. And that's why we solely rely on cryptographic primitives for validity.
Got it. Got it. There's another ecosystem of blockchains out there that's very popular these days called Cosmos. And I've spent a lot of time in that ecosystem. It's very interesting what they're doing. And I imagine there's a lot of similarities to what you guys are doing as well. But how do you feel that you guys maybe differentiate between what they're doing in the Cosmos ecosystem and what you guys are doing within Toposware?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cosmos is a great ecosystem. I think they are the ones that have the most zone, or at least blockchains built with their framework. I think it's great for adoption. And the problem, though, is that Cosmos doesn't provide some kind of shared security to the zones. So it's a bit different, for example, with that respect with Polkadot. Polkadot, wherever you are, when you're a parachain, you inherit the security of the relay chain, which is great from your point of view as a parachain. But Cosmos doesn't have that yet. With Cosmos 2.0, they want to have this interchain security, which is to kind of mimic the security model of Polkadot, and that's great. So it's great to see Cosmos going into that direction, which is, they don't have that specific those specific guarantees right now, but they're going towards it, so that's great.
Got it. Got it. In terms of Toposware, getting into the details a bit more, there's a lot of terminology that I came across when I was, researching you guys that I had not have heard of before at all. Subnets being what seems like something that's pretty important that I don't know much about, and especially with businesses as well that want to maybe have their own private blockchain or build out their own chain that's separate from everyone else, maybe for internal uses or something like that. So can you explain a bit about what Subnet is? And I feel like, is that like part of the backbone of, how this ecosystem of blockchains is formed with Toposware, or what is it exactly?
Yeah. So basically, we are developing a trustless and secure ecosystem of interoperable blockchains, which we call subnets. And at the core of this ecosystem, the protocol leverages zero-knowledge proofs and a primitive of reliable broadcast to offer seamless interchain communication without relying on trust in validators for message validity. And those subnets are completely permissionless. So anyone can take the SDK and deploy their own subnets. And you can think of subnet as either, for example, a blockchain or distributed ledger technologies. And they can be more centralized or decentralized, permissioned or permissionless. But the way you deploy them is just by simply taking the SDK, deploying them, and you have access to the broader Topos ecosystem. And each of your state transitions are proven cryptographically via a zero-knowledge proof.
Are these mainly designed for large corporations and institutions to use, or could anyone create like a subnet or create a private permission blockchain?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've designed the subnets and the whole protocol with privacy in mind. So basically, really anyone, the source code will be open source, of course. So anyone can take the source code, the SDK, and deploy permissionlessly the subnet. It could be enterprise subnets. It could be decentralized and public subnets. It doesn't really matter. It's completely left to the developer to design the structure of their subnets, whether they want it to be private, public, a blockchain, a non-blockchain. It's left to the developer. So we accommodate for every use case.
Got it. And just to cover some of the other terminology that seems unique to you guys, I came across a universal certification interface, a transmission control engine. Can you kind of, at least briefly, maybe kind of cover some of these things and what aspects of Toposware that maybe they contribute to.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we have the UCI, the Universal Certification Interface, and you can think of it like blockchains learning the same language somehow, so that they can communicate with each other. But the UCI goes kind of beyond this simple communication standard, and it's also capable of proving state transitions. So basically, it lets the receiver verify that an incoming token, for example, or transactions more generally, is correct, is valid, without actually seeing the history of that token or of that transaction, meaning that subnets can have a privacy. And so yeah, the UCI is really this common language, this common set of rules that the subnets must follow if they want to interoperate with each other. And a big piece also of the UCI is that the UCI is comprised of a certificate, which is an object that kind of compress or aggregate transaction execution to be then delivered across the ecosystem via the TCE. And the TCE, if I can just say a word about it, this is, you can think of it as this the bedrock for cross-subnet communication. And instead of relying on traditional consensus, we rely on reliable broadcast, which is a different primitive in distributed systems, but that offers better performance and less constraint. You can think of it as a simpler way, because we realized through research that consensus is not needed every time. So for example, in the case of Bitcoin, it's basically a complete overkill. Bitcoin should not need to have consensus. It could do the same thing by relying on much weaker primitives, and the weaker the better. And so that's this realization that you do not need consensus to prevent double spending that led us to switch from Swiss consensus to another primitive that is much more efficient.
Interesting. For developers that maybe want to build within the Toposware ecosystem, are there any barriers to entry that maybe they need to know about or brush up on? Like Ethereum, you need to know Solidity. Cardano, you need to know Haskell. Is there anything that maybe prevents them or makes it difficult, or is it very simple and straightforward?
Yeah, so we try to make it as simple as possible for developers to be able to onboard. And that's why, for example, we are EVM compatible. So you can have developers that come from Ethereum or the Ethereum ecosystem and deploy their own smart contract on Topos without having to learn a new language or a new set of skills. They can just come in exactly like they did on Ethereum. They can come and deploy their smart contract on Topos.
Okay, got it. So it's pretty easy for them to kind of like migrate over. If they don't have to learn like a whole new language, they don't have to like learn too many other things. They can just kind of plug right in.
Absolutely.
Nice. And in terms of maybe Toposware more broadly, what are some of the use cases that you hope the ecosystem will be able to solve? Do you want it to be something that's very social or community oriented, maybe working a lot with NFTs and tokens? Do you want it to focus on solving larger issues, maybe with the climate and carbon credits or supply chain type issues? Or do you want it to get into the business sector or the government sector? Is there like a direction, or is it just open for people to innovate in different areas?
Yeah, absolutely. A great question. So of course, since we are permissionless and we are EVM compatible, so it means that really anyone can come and deploy their own application on top of Topos. Now we have a few properties that are also interesting for enterprise because of privacy. So we can have enterprise that deploy their own private subnet and be able still to interoperate with the broader Topos ecosystem. And we see, for example, use cases that would involve where financials would far exceed any potential securitization of a chain and need to interoperate across an ecosystem for other markets, agencies, or countries, or more simply wants to engage a consumer directly. So, for example, stock markets, derivative markets, Federal Reserve, central banks. And we also see applications, for example, with governments, when governments may want to interact with consumers or consumer on-chain identities. So, for example, the IRS, social security, immigration, voting, student loan, etc.
Awesome. Yeah, no, there's a lot of potential use cases there. Are there any applications or things being developed on Toposware right now that maybe you're most excited about or that you think is really cool, maybe you want to highlight in the ecosystem?
Yes, so we just exited the stealth mode a couple months ago with the publication of our white paper. So we are actually now very actively looking for foundational Web3 partners and projects to ensure that we can have an impactful testnet next year, Q2 2023. So right now we are just coming out of stealth.
Got it. Yeah, you had mentioned that. What are you guys looking forward to on your roadmap going into 2023? I know the testnet's one thing. Are the other things you guys have planned out, maybe that you're excited about or you want people to, keep an eye on?
Yeah, so we've already and keep going on bringing on partners. And we are, for example, very well advised by senior advisors from, for example, director at Meta, Facebook, marketing officer at VMware, professor at UT Austin, vice president of Bank of America. So we have these partnerships that are building up, and we hope to have more, of course, in 2023. And right now we are really gearing up towards the testnet. So all our effort are on engineering to make sure that we can deliver this big milestone that will be the dev net early Q2 next year.
Okay. Do you have a date set for the testnet, or is it just waiting?
Yeah, it's still to be determined.
Okay.
We really target Q2, but I can't give you an exact date right now.
Got it. What about a community? Do you guys have a place where people can go and kind of talk and collaborate on what they are doing or want to do within the Toposware community? Do you have like a Telegram or a Discord or elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. So of course, anyone can contact us via our contact form on the website, on Twitter. We have set up a Discord, though we are very early stage still. But yes, on Discord, definitely that's where that will be the place to be, to contact us directly for technical questions and less technical questions.
Got it. And the website's the best place for them to go if they want to get more information?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we are setting up the newsletter and all this to make sure that we can deliver good content to people, and making sure that we can also, with our CRM, collect people's inquiries to make sure that we can be responsive and answer their questions.
You guys have a newsletter too?
Yeah, absolutely. You can subscribe if you want. Yeah.
I'll subscribe. Where does the newsletter, what do you guys put out in the newsletter generally? Just updates on Toposware or?
Yeah, absolutely. Like development updates when we participate in some event. For example, after tonight, I'll be at some event. Also at the end of I'll be in Miami at the end of the month, I think on the 17th for a crypto event. Also in Boston and New York. This on the 7th, something like this. So all these announcements of where we are development-wise and community-wise, we put it in the newsletter.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good question to ask. What events are you going to? So there's the one in London I know that's happening. Is it right now or in a week?
In London, which one is it?
Token 2049 in London, I think, is the one that's coming up or is happening right now.
Yeah, I won't be attending this one.
Okay.
But yeah, right now, I think until the beginning of December, I have 4 planned. So we'll be present in New York on the 7th, in Miami on the 17th, I think in Boston on the 5th, December 5th, and tonight in Boston as well. Yes, that's the roadmap right now for the events.
Do you guys have any events lined up for 2023 yet? Or is it still open?
Yeah, not yet. Still open.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me know if you guys are going to anything. I think there's another few that are happening here in Colombia. If you guys are interested in getting into the Latin America market.
Yeah, definitely.
I think ETH Denver is the other big one that's happening around March.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. Theo, thank you for taking the time, man, really, to come on the show and talk about what you guys are doing with Toposware. For you guys in the audience, make sure to go check them out. Make sure to subscribe to their awesome newsletter. I'm going to do so. Make sure to find him on social media. Make sure to like and subscribe to the video and the podcast if you have not already. And Theo, once again, thank you, man. Really appreciate it. Very informative. Learned a lot about Toposware, and very excited to see how you guys expand and what you guys do come testnet. Very exciting.
Yep. Thank you, Brennan, for the opportunity. It was great.
Absolutely. Stay on for just a second. We'll chit chat. But yeah, let's do it again soon.
Okay. See you, Brennan. Bye.